So I honestly do think that if I had to pick one game that was the best game called of 2019, I think I'm giving it to the Packers and Matt LaFleur and his game plan against the Seattle Seahawks. There was so much really just creative play calls throughout the entire game. I thought it was just so much fun to watch, and I think it's a huge reason they were able to win that game because I don't think the talent level was actually that different. I do think Green Bay was more talented, but it wasn't like they were insanely more talented, especially when it came to defense, as in Seattle's defense versus Green Bay's offense, I should clarify. He had some really good play calls. I think he had also the play call of the year in this game where what happened was it's a cover one play, a cover one blitz that they're going up against. And so what's good against man coverage, specifically, if there's no one covering the middle of the field, well, you might do a pick play like that, makes sense. You have them run across from each other. A defensive back could run into somebody else. These are plays that can work out. Everyone watching this understands why a pick play works. And so, what do you do if you're Seattle? Well, right after the ball is snapped, at this point, you can do two things. One thing you can do is just sort of, fight through the pick. Think about it like basketball, where you can either fight through the pick or you can, give up and just sort of, switch, essentially. You can switch or you can fight through the pick. And what a lot of teams do in football, what most teams do in football, is just always, fight through it, never switch under any circumstances. Because, again, like in basketball, if the pass gets through, that's not the end of the world as long as you can get back. But in football, the whole goal is to not allow the pass to get through. So you have to be a little bit tighter in football than you do in basketball. And so what Seattle's going to do is they're going to switch. This is what they do a pretty good amount throughout the regular season, is they will switch. So now this means that the Seattle defensive back closest to the bottom of the screen will not be covering Davante Adams, but instead he'll be covering the number 2 receiver, and the Seattle defensive back who's closest to the middle of the field is not going to be covering Adams. It makes some sense. But Green Bay is not running a pick play here. Watch Davante Adams, who's closest, he's closest to the sideline, and watch how he then cuts back to the end zone and gets wide open for a touchdown because it basically created a pick play while not having a pick play. They knew Seattle was going to switch, pulled off a fake pick play, and got a touchdown. Just a super clever play, a super fun play. I talked about it a lot when it happened. I thought it was just such a creative play call. It has been done before. It's not the first time this has been done. If you watched my Kyle Shanahan series, I don't know how many people watched, all 6 episodes that were, probably like 4 hours worth of content. But one of the plays I broke down was actually Shanahan had done this before. So it has been done, but very rarely, and you have to pick your spot perfectly because if they don't switch, well, then you just wasted your time doing nothing, and you took 2 receivers out of the play, but if it does work, it can give you a touchdown. And so, LaFleur heading into this game, he clearly had saved some of his better play calls for this game, and that's kind of the advantage of having that extra week. They had the bye week, and they had an extra week to prepare and just come up with some creative play calls, and I think that I would probably say that there has to be a good chance, at least, that that's part of why the NFL decided to get rid of the number 2 seed, getting a bye week and adding a wild card team, is to try to, neutralize that advantage to some degree. It still is, takes place at the number 1 seed, but it kind of makes it more of an advantage to get the 1 seed. I'm assuming that's part of why, because it can be a big advantage. But that being said, we've seen it time and time again where teams have that advantage and do nothing with it. We've seen that with the Packers, with Mike, Green Bay has definitely had their, getting a bye week and still not being able to make the most of it. But, this time they certainly made the most of it. This was another, it's really actually 3 plays in a row. I won't even show the first play. I'll just show the second play because the first and second are very similar. But anyways, what's happening here is that a little bit complicated here. But basically, Rodgers will fake a handoff, and then you have a receiver who's running to the top of the screen and a receiver who's running to the bottom of the screen. And so, in theory, he could be running a jet sweep right here, but what he's actually going to do is he's going to roll out to the bottom of the screen. Adams is also running in that direction. He's going to throw it to Adams. They're going to try and get a completion, and watch how well it works out. Adams runs. He is able to get past that Seattle player on the edge, and he's able to run over and pick up the first down. So, okay, good job. Seattle was a little bit fooled. They thought it was going to be something up the middle. Weren't sure exactly what was going on, but, it ended up resulting in a first down. And actually, the play right before it, they did something very similar, except they had the play to the top of the screen instead of to the bottom of the screen. And so, they had run 2 plays like that both to either sideline. So now Seattle is thinking, okay, we do have to be wary of that happening, and they're not afraid to do that multiple times in a row, so they could literally be doing it right here. And so what do you do if you're a play caller and you know the defense is going to be a little bit wary of plays potentially going outside the numbers? Well, then you can go over the middle, and that's what they're going to do, but not just in a traditional way. What they're going to do is they're going to run play action, and again, it's going to be a tight end, but he's going to run out to the bottom of the screen where maybe they could throw it out to, and then Davante Adams is just going to run straight over the middle. And typically, throughout the course of the season, Adams had been getting double teamed. There was always people on Adams constantly. But look what happens right when the ball is snapped. Adams is wide open, and especially the two Seattle players on the bottom of the screen, watch how out of position they are, where, the one closest to the middle of the field is so far in because he thought it could be maybe a run up the middle, and another Seattle player is moving very far outside, even though there's no Green Bay player really in the area, because he thought maybe that's what was going to happen. Maybe it was going to be another, play like the last one. And because of this, Adams is just wide open, and it's just an easy play to make, and it's really just set up because of an incredible play design, and not just a play design, but 3 plays in a row. And of course, if the players didn't execute, it wouldn't have mattered, but still, really good play design by LaFleur, I thought. And also, if I said that, that fake pick play was probably my favorite play of the year, well, my favorite running play of the year might have been this one. I mean, I'd probably have to give it to some of Kyle Shanahan's runs, maybe his 3rd down and 8 touchdown on the first drive, against the Packers in that championship game. But this one's certainly up there. It's in my top 5 for sure. What's going to happen is that you're going to have Aaron Jones fake as though he's going to the right and then go to the left. And I'm talking our right, not his right. Obviously, you see it on the screen. I don't have to explain it. And then what's going to happen is that, so you think, okay, well, this makes sense, right? You get players to think it's going to be to the right side of the screen. They move to the left and, eventually move to the left, but hopefully you can get there quicker than them. But what they're actually going to do is they're going to have their left guard and left tackle run over and block like that. So the guard is going to actually block the defensive tackle on his right side of his body, which will push him to the left side of the screen. And with the left tackle just blocking 57 right there can be a gap in the middle of the, middle of that area. But at the same time, there's 2 Seattle players in the area as well, one of which is Bobby Wagner, who is pretty good at making plays. So if they just ran it straight up like that, it wouldn't work out. But maybe if they ran it with a fake to the left and then went to the right, they could maybe have it work out. But again, Bobby Wagner's smart. You're not going to fool him too much. So instead what they're doing is they're faking as though they're going to the right, then going to go to the left. And because of this, what happens now is that if you notice, Wagner, he waited a second, and then once he saw that second fake, now he's like, okay, now I know what's going on. Get over here. And on top of that, you now have a receiver who has time to run over, and he can block 37, meaning that both of those 2 Seattle players are basically taken out of the play, and they're able to make both of those blocks, and Jones is able to get up inside the 5 and get a first down and goal. Again, it's like it's hard to call the best run design play of the year a play that results in a 9-yard gain and a first down. But at the same time, it was just a really creative play call, and you can tell LaFleur said, hey, we got at most 3 games. Let's make the most of them. And, through play calling, especially through this one, he certainly did. He used a lot of really creative play calls. I'll show one more. This isn't like anything that's like super out of the ordinary, but it is still pretty clever, a pretty good idea. It's going to be a cover 3 zone, and they're going to run play action and have Davante Adams run over the middle. So you're thinking, I thought you said this was creative, not something very simple and basic. This is something we see all the time. But it actually is a very clever call here, because what they're actually going to do is they're then going to have Adams fake as though he's running over the middle, but then break to the outside. And again, this isn't something that has never been done before. We've seen Kyle Shanahan do this a lot. There actually are a lot of similarities between those 2 guys, which is why I keep bringing Shanahan up. But again, watch how well this works out, because you look at 21, he's going to move closer to Adams and then gets completely fooled by that. And the reason for it is because, on play action, typically the goal of it is to move the linebackers in so you can throw over the middle and get a completion. So typically, you're expecting somebody to run over the middle. And also on cover 3, what you're largely doing is the player who's in charge of covering a back part of the screen closest to the sideline, what they're typically doing is they're typically just going to make sure that they don't allow a player to get closer to the sideline or further deep. But they also, typically that's the reason why over the middle works, so they're even more expecting it to be over the middle. Just using conventional wisdom against them, so to speak. Just a clever play call, and really I thought LaFleur had such a well play called game. I think that only through the grace of Russell Wilson's greatness was it even really that competitive. They did get out in front. Seattle got back in it, but they were able to get the win. And I just think the offensive game plan, probably the best of the season, I think. Listen, it's one of the many reasons I like LaFleur is because of how well he called this game. I think, some people, one of which being my podcast co-host Kyle, will talk about how there were certain things throughout the regular season that just seemed very bland and very stale. And it's like, hey, you have Davante Adams, Aaron Jones, Aaron Rodgers. This is getting kind of boring, even though obviously they need more receiving help, I thought. But at the same time, I do understand that criticism. However, I think part of the reason they were doing that is because they're like, hey, we're winning game after game. Let's not use our most creative play calls so we can save it for the postseason. And, they were never realistically going to be able to beat San Francisco. Although I think people forget that they did actually come back and make a game of it in the fourth quarter. It was a 2-score game at one point. They just weren't able to fully, finish things off. But at the same time, I thought that LaFleur called a really good game, and it's one of the reasons I am so high on him as a head coach and as a coordinator. I think people forget how insane it is that he made it to the NFC Championship game and had his team go 13-3 as a rookie head coach. Like, that doesn't happen almost ever. So, I think he's really good. I really like him. And I thought this game really showcased his performance. But what do you guys think? What do you think of LaFleur's, performance in this game as a play caller, and also just him as a head coach as a whole? I am very pro LaFleur. I've been pro LaFleur since, before he was even, maybe not before he was hired, but once he was hired, I really liked him, and I thought that he was going to be a great fit for them. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.